Transformed, how a poor maid revealed a CEO's first smile in 30 years through a simple card game. Clara Garcia dusted the corner of the lavish boardroom, hardly able to breathe as the gold accents shimmered under the fluorescent lights. Her hands trembled, not from the arduous work, but from the plaguing thought that her modest income could barely cover Sophia's school supplies. The thought never left her a constant shadow, echoing her fears of inadequacy and the tightening grip of financial despair. Every detail of the elegant surroundings reminded her of the life she longed to give her daughter, a life of security, comfort, beyond the confines of cramped apartments and second-hand clothes. She watched the corporate elite stride through the corridors of wealth, each tailored suit a stark contrast to her faded uniform. Their serious faces, punctuated by the chime of cell phones and the clatter of heels, pierced her heart like arrows of despair. William Hart, the imposing CEO, never seemed to notice her existence, his eyes clouded with the weight of untold grief. Clara's stomach knotted at the thought of what was unfolding in that man's soul. She felt a reluctant connection to him, rooted in shared sorrows, though she couldn't fathom the depths of his isolation. One evening, scurrying to gather remnants of discarded papers, Clara stumbled across an old card game buried under a pile of forgotten records. Dust motes spiraled in the dim light, reminiscent of fleeting time and opportunities lost. A flicker of hope ignited within her. A simple game could momentarily lift the heaviness that enveloped her world. Summoning her courage, she hesitated at the thought of approaching a man so far removed from her realm. But what did she have to lose? "Mr. Hart?" she ventured, her voice barely a whisper. He turned, a raised eyebrow the only indication of interest. "Would you like to play a game?" Surprise flashed across his features, as if she had broken through an intricate porcelain facade. To her astonishment, he nodded, albeit hesitantly. The cards shuffled between them like the tentative trust forming in the air. With each hand dealt, Clara's laughter broke through his rigid atmosphere. It filled the space with warmth, stark against his perpetual seriousness. As they played, Clara shared stories of her struggles, her mother's relentless work ethic, the fleeting smiles of Sophia, each revelation met with a softening in William's demeanor. Yet even as joy unfolded, fear gnawed at the edges of Clara's heart. What if this connection crumbled under the burden of reality? Each laugh was a reminder of the fragility of dreams, the looming specter of financial insecurity tainting the moment. Their lives were chalk and cheese, and in the deep crevices of her mind, doubts sparked like wildfire. If he ever saw her world the chaos, the struggle, would he retract into his castle of loneliness once more? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As days turned into weeks, Clara and William's friendship blossomed, bringing hidden vulnerabilities to light. But just as she felt a glimmer of hope, shadows emerged from William's past. An old rival threatened to dismantle everything he had achieved, striking terror into Clara's heart. Feeling the weight of the conflict, she grappled with loyalty. Could she really stand beside a man who loomed so large, so tortured by the ghosts of his past? As the stakes escalated, a swell of anguish coiled within her. With their fragile bond on the precipice, Clara knew they were both on the verge of upheaval, pushing her to confront whether she could truly be the anchor he needed before it was too late. Clara was at a crossroads, standing in the echo of William's vulnerability. Each day, she ventured deeper into his world, but uncharted territories and looming challenges loomed over her like dark clouds. The moments spent in the boardroom, once excruciatingly foreign, began to feel oddly comfortable as their bond deepened. Yet as the frivolities of card games turned to whispered conversations about fears and aspirations, a new ache emerged, the realization that her own life was still mired in uncertainty. She existed in two realms, the lavish boardroom and her modest home, each representing contradictory forces. The laughter with William felt like shallow air against the dense weight of her precarious existence outside those walls. How could she contribute meaningfully to his world when her own felt like a decaying structure? Gradually, the belief that she might be his anchor morphed into a fear of being a burden. As tensions surged in William's life, each interaction involved shadows of dread. News of his rival's next moves splintered into Clara's thoughts. Every time he fell silent, Clara could see the tension clawing at him, urging her to step forward, to offer strength. Yet, her own insecurities wrestled desperately within her, asking if her words could ever hold the weight they needed to. One Friday evening, after a particularly discouraging day filled with broken promises and neglect, Clara returned home and collapsed into a chair, her hands shaking. She held Sophia's school supplies, an effort overshadowed by feelings of failure. The world she wanted to build felt more elusive than ever, and the thought of being an inspiration to William pushed her to confront her own fears. Were her aspirations for a better life simply dreams, or could they echo into reality? Later that night, a message pinged on her phone. It was William, sharing a snippet of his day. Sensing the frustrated energy within the text, she felt compelled to respond with honesty. "I want to be there for you, but my life seems so small compared to the challenges you face. It's hard to reconcile." A moment later, his reply came back quicker than she expected. "Your presence is what matters. You remind me life can still be joyful. Keep being you." The simplicity of his words washed over her, strange but comforting. In this unexpected exchange, she found renewed purpose. Perhaps she had been selling herself short. The weight of her struggles and daily battles could add color to his monochromatic world. She had resilience. She had strength born from necessity, and maybe, just maybe, those qualities could offer a new angle to their connection. On the following Monday, Clara arrived earlier than usual, determined to explore the depths of her potential. She began assessing her surroundings with fresh eyes, noting how she could apply her resourcefulness not just to her life, but also to William's growing predicament. As she polished surfaces and aligned papers, a focus crystallized. She could help him strategize his next move against the rival troubling him. This wasn't merely a play for survival, it could be a moment of growth for Clara. Later that week, Clara found an opportunity to share her ideas. "I've been thinking about your company's branding strategies," she began, hesitantly at first, but carving more conviction with each word spoken. Surprised, William leaned forward, intrigued by her insights. His attention ignited a spark inside Clara that had long been dormant, a sense of self-worth kindled by the realization that her experiences held value. As she outlined her thoughts, the warmth of their interaction bore weight. Her confidence solidified. The burgeoning realization that she could wield her perspective as an asset ushered in a sense of empowerment that felt electric. Just as the conversation shifted towards actionable solutions, his phone buzzed, and William's face morphed from interest to dread, reading an alarming memo. "Looks like they're ramping up the attack," he muttered under his breath, eyes narrowing. Determined, Clara could feel the tension re-emerging, the looming threat of his rival creeping back into their lives. At the moment that William's resolve seemed to waver, Clara knew she had to make a choice. Would she retreat into her old life of self-doubt or step boldly into her emerging role in his journey? As the stakes tightened around them, she resolved to anchor not just him, but herself as well, aware that their destinies were entwined. Feeling the rush of determination surge through her, Clara stepped into the fray. The time had come to confront the reality of her purpose, and she steeled herself for the challenges ahead. What would her new role entail, and would her emerging strength be enough to weather the storm? Clara's heart raced as she paced the boardroom, a space that had become increasingly familiar, yet still simultaneously foreign. The weight of the moment pressed against her chest. Each deliberate step felt like a decision made, echoing with purpose. She could be the voice that led to change, or she could linger in the shadows of inadequacy. With each passing moment, she wrestled with an urgency drawing her closer to William and further away from her doubts. She turned her attention to the team gathered around the large oak table, their faces a mix of apprehension and anticipation. They were on the cusp of a strategy meeting, a crucial moment where William's leadership would be tested. Clara glanced at him, catching the flicker of anxiety in his eyes, a man accustomed to control, yet now diminishing under external pressures. Here was her chance to shine, to redefine her role beyond that of a supportive figure. "Let us streamline our branding approach," Clara suggested, her voice steadier than she felt. "We need an authentic narrative that resonates not just with our audience but also internally." Heads turned, surprised by her boldness. She continued, her confidence growing with each observation shared. "If we present ourselves as a team overcoming obstacles, it humanizes us. It integrates our challenges into our story and allows others to connect." William's gaze locked with hers. A brief flicker of indecisiveness wavered before he nodded slowly, taking in her words. The room filled with murmurs of agreement, a wave of energy rising as the team considered the shift in perspective. Clara felt her own excitement swell. This was not just a meeting, it was a turning point not only for the team but for her burgeoning identity as a valued contributor. The conversation morphed into a brainstorming session, each idea spiraling into another. Clara's thoughts flowed freely, infused with her desire to fortify both their lives. She felt an empowerment she had long yearned for, a sense of purpose intertwined with William's challenges. Yet, deep within her, a nagging anxiety shadowed her growing confidence. It whispered that doubt would not relent easily, and that inadequacy might still loom in moments of weakness. As focus shifted back toward William, she noted the strain etched across his face. He sat silently, absorbing the animated dialogue and invariably heavy with the burden of leadership. It struck Clara then. The emotional threads binding them ran deeper than mere camaraderie. They were both navigating uncertainty, though their struggles were cloaked in different fabrics. A daring impulse surged within her. Clara turned to William and asked, "What if we open up to the team about each of our challenges? Share stories that illustrate our resilience?" It was a risk born from her own ongoing journey, a reflection of what she had recently shared with him. In some strange way, revealing their vulnerabilities might transform the energy in the room. William hesitated for a heartbeat. She could see gears turning in his mind. "You think they'll understand?" he questioned. "Absolutely. It could bring us closer, unite us against the pressures," Clara asserted, every word infused with sincerity. "Embracing our fear might redirect our focus towards collaboration." The silence that enveloped them felt monumental. Clara's heart raced not just with the risk of suggestion but with the realization that this encounter could fracture the walls built around William. As the meeting progressed, William ultimately acquiesced. "Okay," he said slowly, a mix of trepidation and resolve in his voice. "Let us do it." Clara's breath hitched in her throat. She could see the shift in his demeanor, a flicker of his long-imprisoned spirit beginning to break free. But as that newfound hope settled, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that this shared vulnerability would truly test her resolve. What if revealing their lives fractured them further instead of forging strength? The stakes felt higher, the air tense with anticipation as Clara acknowledged the delicate balance they stood upon. No longer was it merely an act of supporting William. It transformed into a collective leap of faith. Her instincts urged caution, but her heart knew this was a risk worth taking. It would be pivotal not just for them as individuals, but for their intertwined journeys. Could vulnerability really be the anchor against the storm closing in? She smiled at William, her heart pounding, waiting for the next moment that could either seal their fate or spark a rebellion against their fears. The real question loomed. Were they strong enough to embrace the vulnerability lurking beneath the surface? Upcoming decisions would reveal whether they could navigate this uncharted territory together. The room fell into a contemplative hush, thick with the weight of expectation. Clara's proposal landed heavily, intertwining their fates in a way both exhilarating and unnerving. As the conversation shifted towards the potential storytelling sessions, she felt a bubbling mix of excitement and dread. This was not merely about changing the company narrative, it was an intertwining of their personal lives, opening up potential avenues for fear, trust, and perhaps redemption. With the meeting concluded and the team charged with the task ahead, Clara sought a moment alone. The bright fluorescent lights of the boardroom felt blinding as she stepped outside into the more forgiving shadows of the hallway. She leaned against the wall, her mind racing. Could vulnerability really be the cornerstone of their leadership? The idea seemed compelling, almost revolutionary, yet Clara felt the pang of her own insecurities. Could she bear the fallout of revealing her own struggles? The thought sent shivers through her. The moments she had battled self-doubt, scrutinizing her worth while others celebrated their successes, flooded her mind. Vulnerability felt like a double-edged sword capable of cutting through barriers, yet sharp enough to cause damage both to herself and her carefully crafted image. As she walked back towards her desk, Clara passed by a group of colleagues sharing a laugh. A pang of longing gripped her. She envisioned the friendships being constructed within those easy exchanges, relationships enriched by openness. It struck her suddenly accepting vulnerability could be the key unlocking not just unity, but a genuine connection as well. Sitting at her desk, she opened her notebook and began writing down her thoughts for the team. She felt the weight of her current role trying to protect her identity as well as others, but what was it truly protecting? The fear of judgment loomed large, threatening to derail her growth. Yet, her recent foray into courage demanded she confront this unsettling truth. Clara? William's voice brought her back. He leaned against the doorframe, his presence both comforting and intimidating. Are you ready for tomorrow? Ready as I can be, she replied, forcing a smile. But the tremor in her voice betrayed her. Your idea about sharing stories, I've been thinking. He stepped closer, that flicker of vulnerability rekindled in his eyes. It terrifies me, but I see why it's important. I just hope they can bear our truths without judgment. A chance to reassure and coalesce with him surged within her. It's essential for them to see the real us, unfiltered by the roles we play every day. Clara paused, her eyes locking onto his. They need to understand that we've fought for what we have, just like they do. A silence widened between them, rippling with history and new potential. Clara realized that their vulnerabilities were tethered together, each challenge highlighting their strengths in unexpected ways. What if they don't respond the way we hope? William's voice dropped, an honest inquiry laden with fear. Clara inhaled, grounding herself in an unexpected reservoir of newfound strength. They might surprise us. Leaning into our struggles might shift how they see leadership. And you know what? We can be stronger for it, regardless of the outcome. She was surprised by her clarity and conviction. Perhaps it was the build-up of her own revelations, but she believed in what she shared. The empowerment she saw to herself was echoed in each decision that now faced them. This was not solely a meeting of the minds. This was a pivotal moment of growth, a transformative space that could carve a future far brighter than the shadows of their pasts. As they shared that moment, a thought lingered at the edge of Clara's mind, nudging her forward. Could she truly embrace the depths of her fears and communicate her truths? As her resolve solidified, the prospect of tomorrow took on a daunting weight. Could stepping boldly into the unknown of her story light the way for others? She pondered the paths that lay ahead, a journey rife with uncertainties, but also rich with possibility. Deep down, she knew that embracing this next chapter together with William would be a defining moment, either uniting them or pulling them apart. Clara's thoughts swirled as she glanced at William, a determined look crossing her features. No more hiding, she murmured, the words a silent promise to herself. We face it together. The challenge ahead was steep, but she felt the fire of potential surge within. Tomorrow would reveal their story, forcing them to step into the light or retreat back into shadow. And as that realization sank in, she felt the urgency of the moment charge her spirit. A reckoning was coming. Would they emerge united, or would they fracture under the weight of their fears? The following morning, Clara sat in front of her mirror, the reflection feeling foreign angst and determination etched into her features. She had never taken a leap quite like this, and the anticipation clawed at her stomach. The weight of her words from yesterday still lingered, echoing in her thoughts. No more hiding. It was a vow, but the reality seemed daunting as she began to mentally map out the storytelling session. Inhaling deeply, she reminded herself of the genuine connections that could sprout from raw honesty. Yet the specter of doubt loomed over her. What if her truths resonated poorly? What if she cracked open the door to her past, only to find it tarnished? She could sense William's presence, his supportive warmth making its way through their shared challenges. But she also felt the distance that uncertainty created, walled in by layers of fear they both needed to dismantle. Arriving at the office, Clara walked through the familiar halls lined with glass-paneled offices where whispers danced and mingled with clinking keyboards. She passed by colleagues in animated discussions, laughter punctuating the air, rendering her heart heavy with envy. That camaraderie eluded her. As she took her seat in the conference room, she noted the expectant stares of her team, each face a canvas of unreadable emotions. William entered last, his presence a calming force. He nodded at Clara, his eyes conveying a silent promise of solidarity. Setting a sheet of papers before her, he leaned closer. "It's time," he murmured, a blend of encouragement and unease. Clara nodded, heart pounding beneath her professional facade. With a sweeping glance around the room, Clara began to speak, her voice surprisingly steady. "Thank you all for being here. Today, we want to talk about something vulnerable yet powerful, our stories." She felt their collective breath hitch. What makes us who we are, both professionally and personally? We're not just titles. We each hold stories that deserve to be told. Silence blanketed the room, and Clara felt the twinge of fear return. But she pressed on, recalling her promise. "In leading this company, I've encountered my own fears, doubts, and victories. I want to share a piece of that with you today." As she began to reflect on her past battles with self-worth, mingled with memories of feeling like an outsider within her own professional skin, she began to see flickers of understanding behind their eyes. Faces softened, expressions shifting from skepticism to curiosity. William leaned in, clearly moved by her forthrightness. His turn came, his voice more assured as he shared where he grappled with expectations. "I've stumbled a lot," he confessed, warmth radiating through his vulnerability. "Fear of being judged has stopped me from being authentic." With each word, he shattered barriers not just for himself, but for Clara too, unveiling an unspoken bond in their collective struggles. As the stories wove together, Clara saw their walls start to lower. People began sharing their own challenges and triumphs, revealing layers previously shrouded in a veneer of professionalism. The room transformed slowly, laughter replacing tension. Raw emotions peeked through, leading to moments of unexpected camaraderie. Clara reveled in the atmosphere shifting, feeling the tide turn from isolation to unity. Yet, amidst the unfolding connections, a nagging doubt remained in the back of her mind. This was her moment to shine, but was she truly prepared for what came next? Every truth shared was a thread binding them together, but also a reminder of the delicate nature of those connections. What if someone pushed back? What if someone didn't reciprocate? As the session continued, a familiar face, a colleague known for their sharp edges and harsh feedback, remained silent. Clara felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Would they resist this newfound openness? She realized then that the courage to share was matched only by the courage to face any backlash. The duality of vulnerability, it could forge connections, yet it could shatter defenses. In that moment, Clara understood the precipice she stood upon. With the session coming to an end, Clara felt changed and empowered, yet apprehensive about the road ahead. She had cracked open a part of herself she had long hidden, but the vulnerability was raw, unpolished. As several colleagues came forward to express their gratitude for her honesty, she caught a glimpse of the unsaid words that loomed heavy. What lay hidden in the mind of that critical colleague? As Clara reflected on their silence, a sense of urgency pressed down upon her. An impending confrontation with this individual was on the horizon. Would their feedback bring her insight or rejection? This was just the beginning, a thrilling narrative intersecting personal growth and professional risk, but also the dread of the next inevitable challenge. Clara returned to her office, feeling the momentum of the session ebb into a soft reverberation in her chest. The walls were still adorned with her recent memories of vulnerability, juxtaposed with the unease of the looming confrontation. She tried to focus on her tasks, but each click of the keyboard sounded like a countdown to the unavoidable. Her eyes drifted to the window. Outside, the world carried on, oblivious to her internal storm. The colleagues she had shared her truth with were now navigating their own revelations, and she could feel their energy lingering in the air. But then there was that silent figure, her shadow, casting doubt upon the progress they had made together. As the clock ticked towards the end of the day, that anxiety coiled tight within her. Clara struggled to find her voice, wondering how to engage this colleague buried under layers of her own skepticism. Was it possible that confronting this critic could deepen their collective trust, or was it destined to create a rift? The thought was paralyzing. She felt her breath hitch, grappling with the naive hope that openness could yield only goodwill. Finally, unable to postpone any longer, she summoned the courage she had unearthed earlier. Clara rose from her desk and navigated through the halls with purpose, muscles tense like a coiled spring. She spotted Ethan, his calculated demeanor always exuding authority, sitting in his office, his gaze fixed on a screen that obscured the view of his thoughts. "Ethan," she called, her voice firm yet inviting. He looked up, his mouth a thin line. The sight took Clara back to the earlier sessions, where his acerbic remarks had sliced through the bravado of her team. This would take all the resolve she'd gathered.
"Can we talk?"
she asked, her heart drumming against her ribcage. Ethan leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. A flicker of skepticism crossed his features, but he gestured for her to enter. Clara stepped in, the familiar sterile smell of disinfectant grounding her, contrasting with the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "Nice presentation earlier," he began, a hint of irony coloring his tone. Clara recognized it as a cautious opening, not entirely sincere but not wholly hostile. "Thanks," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I appreciated your silence. I know it's not a strength you're known for." The slight smirk she wore attempted to offset the vulnerability of the moment. Ethan shifted, his facade momentarily cracking. "Why now?" Clara took a deep breath, remembering the bravery of sharing her story. "Because vulnerability creates connection, and I want to understand your perspective. I believe we all want to progress here, and I value your feedback." His brow furrowed, a surge of challenge rippling across his face. "You genuinely think that sharing feelings will enhance our productivity?" "Maybe," she replied, surprising herself with the boldness of her conviction. "But what if it's less about productivity and more about trust? We're stronger together. That strength can lead to better outcomes." Ethan remained silent for a moment, weighing her words. Clara could feel her pulse quicken as she awaited his response, the weight of uncertainty pressing heavily upon her. Finally, he leaned forward, though his expression remained unreadable. "You realize you're playing a dangerous game here, right? Vulnerability breeds more than trust. It can invite scrutiny. Are you ready for that?" Her resolve firmly grounded, Clara nodded, a newfound clarity illuminating her thoughts.
"I am.
But I hope you'll join me in this. We could create a space where honesty is valued over critique. Isn't that worth exploring?" Ethan's eyes narrowed as he absorbed her challenge. Clara could sense the tension humming in the air, pivotal yet volatile. "I'll think about it," he replied, his voice low, almost reluctant. Clara stepped out of his office, the conversation echoing in her mind. Had she made headway, or merely opened the door to further resistance? She felt strengthened, yet vulnerable, ready for the push and pull that lay ahead. As she prepared to head home, a thought struck her. If Ethan was swayed to consider her approach, Could he be the key to unlocking greater buy-in from the entire team? The connection she had initiated with him could either catalyze transformation or unravel her efforts. With her mind racing and adrenaline coursing through her veins, she realized that this new chapter was not just hers to own. It was a dance between every member of her team, each step a potential leap into the unknown. Yet, standing at that precipice brought a chilling question to her mind. How much was she willing to risk for the potential of an authentic workplace culture? The uncertainty prickled, driving home the urgency of her next move. Clara couldn't shake the sense that the true test of her newfound insights was just around the corner. What hurdles awaited the team's open dialogue, and would their shared stories turn into weapons or tools for growth? Tomorrow she would find out. Clara's night was restless, the weight of the day's conversation with Ethan gnawing at her resolve. Every time she closed her eyes, his furrowed brow and skeptical gaze replayed in her mind like a taut string pulled too tight. What if she had misjudged him entirely? What if her desire for connection invited nothing but turmoil? The morning light broke through the curtains, casting a stark contrast against her inner turmoil. Determined to face the day head-on, she slipped into her favorite blazer and armor of sorts and steeled herself for whatever might come. Each step to the office felt simultaneously empowering and uncertain, and she couldn't ignore the tightness in her chest. Upon arrival, Clara's first task was the team meeting, a scheduled time to regroup after the presentation. As she entered the conference room, she quickly assessed the energy. Her team, usually animated, had an ominous quietness that settled over them like an impending storm. She wondered if Ethan's reaction from the prior day had cast a shadow on their morale. "Morning, everyone," she greeted, forcing a warm smile. The muffled responses were polite yet lackluster. Clara's gut twisted at the thought that her openness might have backfired. "I wanted to take a moment to reflect on yesterday's presentation. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts and any experiences you'd like to share." The hesitation was palpable. Clara shifted in her seat, feeling the barrier of skepticism press against her from all sides. It was then that she noticed Ethan in the doorway, his presence an unanswered challenge. He wasn't here to engage, but rather to scrutinize. For a moment, her courage wavered. Should she scrap her efforts or push forward? Drawing on the conviction she'd cultivated, Clara opted for vulnerability. "I know it takes courage to be open, and I understand if that's not what everyone is comfortable with," she acknowledged. "But perhaps we could frame this as a chance to understand one another better, to find common ground. I believe that could transform how we work together." Silence wrapped around the room. She felt the eyes of her team not only on her but weighed down with an unsaid skepticism. Clara took a deep breath, invoking the memories of the sharing session that had shifted her own perspective. What if we each take a moment to share a challenge we're facing? We can think of it as a way to support one another, instead of seeing it as a vulnerability. As the words hung in the air, a flicker of interest sparked in a few faces, but Ethan remained unmoved. Clara felt the instinctual urge to retreat, to rescind the challenge. But she pressed on. "I'll start. Recently, I've felt overwhelmed with the expectations I've placed on myself in this new role. It's a lot to handle, and I've realized I need support too." A few team members shifted in their seats, glancing at each other. Clara was surprised when Lisa, usually quiet, spoke up next. "I guess I can share, too. I've been struggling with deadlines and feel like I'm constantly under pressure. Sometimes it's hard to find the balance." Encouraged, Clara turned her focus to Ethan, hoping to draw him in. "Ethan, you've become an essential part of our team. What would you like to share?" His expression shifted, annoyance etched in his features. "I don't think this is the time or place for wait." Clara cut him off, instinctively feeling she needed to confront the elephant in the room. "I get that this may seem less productive to you, but can we at least try?" He studied her, deliberating his response as the tension in the room thickened.
"Fine.
But don't expect it to change anything. Sharing feelings won't change the fact that we're here to work." A mixture of disappointment and defiance surged within Clara. "Maybe not," she replied softly, "but it could shift how we work." Ethan shifted uncomfortably, skepticism wavering for just a moment.
Clara seized on it.
"Let us do this for each other, if not for ourselves. The meeting took a turn as one by one, team members opened up, sharing their struggles. Clara felt a tentative connection.
Form.
And as they spoke, she caught glimpses of Ethan listening, perhaps even softening. As the session ended, Clara felt a spark of hope. Could this be the turning point she had risked everything for? But as she looked at Ethan deep in thought, a new tension gripped her. What would happen if he countered the progress they had made? Her heart raced at the prospect of disillusionment hanging in the air. Each moment of courage brought new challenges. Clara stood at the precipice of change, the question echoing in her mind. Was she ready to contend with the storms that needed to follow this first step of vulnerability? The day was still ahead, and with it, a confrontation that could either solidify her efforts or threaten to unravel everything. Clara could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins as she stepped out of the conference room. The weight of her team's collective uncertainty lingered in the air, still echoing her vulnerability. Had she made a mistake? Perhaps she had been too ambitious, going against the grain of their structured, results-driven environment. But with every passing moment, she felt a flicker of confidence ignite within her. The brief interlude of honesty, of peeling back the layers of pretense, had felt invigorating. It also signified a crucial lesson. The bridge to connection often lay in shared struggles. What if she hadn't just strengthened her team, but had also begun to understand her own limitations and strengths more deeply? As Clara navigated through the bustling office, her mind raced with strategies on how to keep this momentum. It was time to transform her vulnerability into an asset. With her professional instincts honed, she recognized the opportunity. She would lead by exemplifying authenticity and openness. She needed to set expectations that aligned with creating a safe space for dialogue and collaboration. Lunchtime arrived, and as she sat alone in the break room, Clara reflected on her earlier meeting. She needed a plan to cultivate this newfound openness, but how could she engage Ethan, the ever-watchful skeptic? What if he saw her vulnerability as weakness? There had to be a way to turn his skepticism into a dialogue, rather than a standoff. A thought struck her, sudden and bold. She could create informal gatherings, team lunches, or brainstorming sessions not tied to hierarchy or rigid agendas. In these moments, she could foster camaraderie and understanding daily touchpoints that went beyond mere productivity. It might even entice Ethan, make him see the merit of her idea beyond his traditional views of success. Emboldened, she pulled out her notebook, jotting down potential themes for these gatherings over lunch. She envisioned games, casual discussions about industry trends, and even incorporating light-hearted activities to build rapport. But with every note she penned, she could not shake the feeling that this path could lead her directly to confrontation with Ethan. As the day progressed, Clara noticed Ethan hovering near the supply closet, rifling through papers. She could read the tension in his posture, a blend of annoyance and contemplation. A surge of determination urged her forward. If there was ever a moment to further test her ideas, it was now. "Ethan," she greeted, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I was thinking about ways we could improve our team's dynamics. I'd love your insights on a few ideas." He paused, blinking slowly. "What ideas?" Clara swallowed her apprehension, feeling the gravity of the moment. "I want to facilitate more collaborative gatherings, informal sessions where the team can talk about challenges and brainstorm ideas together." He tilted his head slightly, skepticism dancing in his eyes. "You think that'll change anything?" "I believe fostering connection will enhance collaboration and trust," she replied, standing her ground. "You've seen today how people responded. I know you want results, but sometimes we need to build first. What do you think?" Ethan's expression deepened into a frown, but there was a flicker of interest. Was it possible he was considering her words? "I think we should focus on deadlines. There's a reason we work in a competitive environment," he replied, arms crossed. "Absolutely," she agreed, her tone firm yet open. "But consider that when a team feels supported, they often exceed those deadlines, motivated by a sense of belonging. Isn't that worth pursuing?" For a moment, Ethan remained silent, pondering. Clara felt the tension between them shift, her heart racing with both hope and doubt. Had she pushed too far, or had she done enough to plant a seed of curiosity in his mind? As they stood facing each other, an electric tension filled the space. Would Ethan dismiss her proposition? Or could this be the moment she sparked a change, not only in her approach but in the very culture of their team? With this flicker of possibility guiding her, Clara took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever confrontation would come next. But as she looked into Ethan's eyes, she couldn't shake the underlying fear. Would her evolving vision for the team deflate under the weight of his judgments? She gripped her notebook tightly, waiting for his response, feeling the impending storm of challenges that lay ahead. What direction would their relationship take? Would he amplify her vision or act as an anchor pulling her back into doubt? Ethan's silence hung in the air like a thick fog, obscuring her path forward. Clara felt the need to fill the void, to clarify her intentions. I understand that the pressure to deliver can be overwhelming, she started, but innovation often stems from collaboration. It might not be a direct path, but those informal sessions could yield surprising results. Ethan finally shifted his weight, a skeptical eyebrow arched, yet there was an unsettling spark in his gaze. So, what? You want me to play games while our competitors are closing deals? His tone was edged with sarcasm, yet something told Clara he was genuinely intrigued. It's more than games. Think of it as creating a culture where failing is part of growth. A culture where people feel safe to voice out ideas no matter how wild could foster the creativity we need to stay ahead. Her voice held steadiness, laced with determination. But we don't have time for wild right now, he retorted, crossing his arms tighter against his chest, a barricade of his own making. What if all this camaraderie leads to complacency? Complacency? Clara echoed, finding herself frustrated and energized at once. Ethan, could it be that our current approach is already complacent? Sticking strictly to the old ways hasn't pushed us forward. Look around, our competition is innovating at a pace we can't ignore. His eyes narrowed, a storm brewing behind them. And you think sitting around the table will substitute for strategic planning? Clara could feel the pressure radiating from his stance, but she recognized it for what it was: fear of change, fear of the unknown. No, I believe combining the two can create a more agile team that's willing to adapt. I'm not asking you to throw away your operational strategies. I want to enhance them. An unexpected thought fluttered into her mind, a subtle realization of courage beyond mere words. She took a step closer, lowering her voice. Ethan, I'm not here to undermine your authority or the achievements we've made. I want us all to feel heard and valued. Trust me, this might be the catalyst we didn't know we needed. His expression softened slightly, as if he were peeling back the layers of his skepticism, unveiling curiosity instead. You really think can cultivate that much change? I do, Clara said, feeling the ephemeral thread of hope stitch itself into the fabric of their conversation. Let's launch one session. Just a pilot. If it doesn't yield results, I'll take responsibility for facing you and the team. Ethan hesitated, the flicker of resistance battling against intrigue. And what if I'm right? We one team make deadlines? Clara took a breath, her resolve double-dog daring the challenge. Then I'll accept that failure. But I've seen how engaging in connections builds motivation. Shouldn't we explore it rather than dismiss it outright? His posture relaxed a fraction. Fine, he muttered, eyes still narrowed but now narrowing toward consideration. But one session. If it flops, we'll leave it behind. Perfect, Clara replied, feeling adrenaline surge again, this time in exhilaration rather than anxiety. I'll plan it and get the team's input. I want them to feel excited. With one last skeptical glance, Ethan nodded, retreating back into his authoritative demeanor. Uncertainty lingered in the air, but Clara gripped her notebook tighter, the ink barely dry on her intentions. This was a small victory, yet the war for transformation had only begun. In her heart, she felt a battle shift. Was this the moment she democratized the decision-making process? The emotional stakes felt higher than ever. If all failed after one session, would she be able to embrace the repercussions? Or would it expose the frailty of her new leadership style? As she walked away, her mind raced with details to encapsulate this moment into something profound. She had created a pathway, albeit a precarious one. But the real test still loomed on the horizon, whispered by the wind of change. How would her team respond to her next bold move, and what challenges would come from this uncharted territory?
What
Direction would they take if the pilot failed, or would it even change the nature of their interactions? She knew, as her heart hammered with anticipation, the next chapter of this journey was just beginning. Clara stood at the threshold of the conference room, anticipation coursing through her veins. The space, once a battleground of ego and silence, cradled the promise of connection and collaboration. Today marked a turning point not just for her but for the entire team. With a pilot session planned, Clara felt the weight of responsibility. This was her chance to transform the culture she had always envisioned, but the outcome remained uncertain. As her colleagues filtered into the room, the collective energy fluctuated between skepticism and curiosity. Clara noted the cautious glances exchanged among the team, especially from Ethan. He had agreed to her proposal, yet she wondered if he truly believed in its potential or merely acquiesced out of obligation. "Welcome, everyone. I appreciate you all making time for this," Clara greeted, positivity lacing her tone. "Today, we're here to engage in an informal session designed to foster connection, building trust through sharing our experiences. Let us explore how we can support each other personally and professionally." She watched as the room responded, some faces lighting up while others remained stoic, a tapestry of emotions entwined by the promise of honesty. Every pair of eyes was a mirror reflecting Clara's fervor back to her, each skeptical brow a challenge she had to meet. If she could guide them through this delicate space, perhaps she could shatter the barriers Ethan epitomized. "Let us start by going around the room. I'll share first, then we can open the floor," Clara suggested, feeling a surge of empowerment coursing through her. She unfolded her narrative, speaking candidly about her struggles balancing the weight of expectations alongside her aspirations for success. "There were days I felt like I was leading a facade rather than a team. But I realized that vulnerability could cultivate stronger ties, strengths born from our shared experiences." Gradually, heads began to nod, and hesitant voices awakened within her teammates. The dialogue flowed. They opened up about their trials, their challenges laced with moments of vulnerability that the previous corporate culture had dissuaded. Each story shared forged connections, and Clara felt the image of the team crystallizing into something cohesive. Yet, as the atmosphere warmed, Clara caught Ethan's approval masked beneath guarded resolve. This made her determination amplify. However, a lingering question reared its head: is this genuine connection sustainable? At the end of the session, Clara felt the exhilaration of progress resonating in the room. "Thank you all for sharing," she said, a satisfied smile spreading across her face. "This is just the beginning of a culture shift, a promise to maintain conversations founded on support rather than silence." As her colleagues began to disperse, Ethan approached, his expression softened. "I didn't think it would work," he admitted. "But that was constructive. I could feel the atmosphere changing, and you drove it well." Clara's heart lifted at the words. "Thank you, Ethan. Your participation meant a lot. I believe if we continue like this, we can achieve an environment where everyone feels valued." Ethan nodded slowly, his usual barriers starting to dissolve. "Let us see how this evolves," he replied, a glimmer of enthusiasm cutting through his stoic demeanor. "Maybe I underestimated the importance of connecting." The next weeks unfolded with renewed energy. Clara's sessions became a staple, each embracing the tenets of trust and shared narratives. The team grew closer, challenges tackled collaboratively rather than in isolation. Clara witnessed firsthand how camaraderie galvanized their work, from innovation in projects to meeting tight deadlines and exceeding client expectations. But most importantly, she felt herself evolving. The woman who once stood in the corner of the boardroom now led it, exuding a solid confidence that resonated with every member of her team. Clara knew she had shifted not just her role, but also their collective trajectory. In a moment of undeniable clarity, she realized her impact transcended the walls of the boardroom. Clara took a moment to reflect on her journey, the uncertainty she had faced, and the doubts she had conquered. She stood proud, solid in her identity as a leader, recognized and competent in her contributions. With the boundaries of their vulnerabilities shattered, Clara scheduled a company-wide keynote to share their collective transformation. "This is our story," she declared before her audience, recounting her journey alongside the team's evolution. "We achieved this through openness, through recognizing that our experiences can be our greatest strengths." As applause surged around her, Clara felt recognized. Her peers stood there not merely as colleagues, but as allies committed to the shared mission. This was her achievement, born from the determination to embrace her truths and inspire others. Clara had conquered her insecurities and established her place in a world once filled with trepidation. This was not just a professional milestone, it was the culmination of personal growth, a relentless march toward belonging and authenticity. In that moment, it struck her. She had transformed not only herself, but catalyzed a legacy of openness, a testament to the courage it takes to forge connections amidst adversity. Emboldened by their shared journey, Clara turned to the future, knowing that this could be the beginning of something profound not just for her, but for every soul willing to embrace vulnerability as a path to greatness. Now, we are at the end of this incredible journey, but it doesn't have to stop here. You need to subscribe now so you won't miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories that can inspire your very own transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support this channel. Every click helps us bring more powerful narratives to you. Comment your reactions and theories about Clara's strong conclusions and what it means for the future. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this enlightening conclusion. Your support is vital for real change.